Welcome everybody today. This is Unstoppable Steletsy, and believe it or not, I actually got for you a very special Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition casting game to do today. So previously, you may remember us doing either, 1 versus 1s, 2 versus 2s, 3 versus 3s, but those were all in either Deathmatch or Supremacy. What I got for you today is something we have not done before, which is actually a treaty 40 minutes, 2 versus 2. So yeah, this is an actual 40-minute treaty game. As such, there's going to be a lot of stuff I'm going to cover in this one, and I do mean a lot of stuff. We're going to be covering not only the initial starting phase of the 40 minutes of preparation, but then I'm going to go over what was told to me about an hour of combat. So yeah, this is going to be a really, really long match, so get your seats braced, get your seatbelts on, get a snack. You're going to need it. This is a very, very big game, so yeah, let's get started for it. But before we get into playing this thing, let's go over the map real quick and see how that might affect the treaty. So one thing I think is going to make a big difference in this treaty game is the fact that you get this big giant ice lake in the middle of the map. Remember now, you can't actually construct buildings on ice, right? What would happen if you tried to build, your house on the ice, right? You would probably fall through the ice and you would freeze to death, right? So that just doesn't work. So yeah, players are going to have to avoid the ice lake, and they're going to have to build either on this shoreline in this little sort of U shape, or they're going to have to sort of go down in this direction, right? Right around the trade routes, basically. And yeah, there's 2 trade routes as well, so we'll see, if anybody can grab onto these things. But if I recall correctly, you can only build within a certain distance of your town center when it's treaty, so I'm thinking maybe only, I don't know. I think maybe Red could build his train post, but I don't think anyone else can actually construct anything. Also, you got these native sites here as well, House of Wedden, House of Vasa. So this should provide an interesting element as well to the match. So let's get started now. We got a lot to discuss today. 40 minutes of prep, followed by probably an hour of combat. So let's go. Alright, so here we go. One team we got is the Chinese and the French. Chinese, in this sort of a situation at least. Where are you, China? There you are. Chinese in this situation are going to have some pretty distinct advantages in the late game once we start getting to that 40-minute mark. The biggest thing China can really depend on is its ability to spam lots and lots and lots of units pretty easily. That's where China's going to do really well. And if depending on what cards you have in your deck, you can actually get some pretty decent combat options. I think there's a bit of a myth out there that all the Chinese units are literal trash, and this is basically weak. Well, that is true in Supremacy for a lot of the match. There are cards, obviously, and things that can make Chinese units pretty strong. Namely, the Meteor Hammer and the Iron Foil. Those are pretty strong cavalry units, even without much cards, but when you add cards to them, boy, are they insane. Also, remember the old Han army, your Quang Pikemen, your Chuko Nu. They obviously get some lot of cards in the home city that buffs them up to some pretty decent stats. So, China's going to have a pretty easy time massing some of their better units, I feel like, here, as well as their artillery, I feel like hand mortars are going to be really essential to pushing back against the enemy here once they start walling up. Flamethrowers can be used if you need something defensively, obviously, too, so we'll see how that works. As for the 2 Frenchies we got on both sides, France in a treaty situation has a lot of things going for it. They get a really strong economy through their Courier de Bois villager. It gathers about, I think it's like 10% quicker than Standard Villi, if I use Wars of Liberty logic to serve me right. So yeah, they're going to have really strong economies overall. In addition, they also have a pretty solid roster overall, France is like the middleman in terms of tier lists, they're not particularly super brutal at anything, but they're not super weak at anything either, so they really got every option. They're really a jack of all trades, really. They got strong artillery through the Griffith Beale card. They got good cavalry, in particular the Cuirassier Gendarme, which has splash attack. They got good infantry in the form of muskets, halbs, Royal Guards, skirmishers, the Voltigeurs. So France can really go in a number of different directions. And as well in the 5th edition, of course, they can access their French Royal Natives as well through one of their cards. So we're going to have to check that out in the decks. And then the last civ we're going to be seeing here is a Germany over here. So Germany in late game, in particular for a treaty situation, yeah, that really serves them pretty well, because remember, a lot of the German late-gamey units that you might want to use are pretty expensive, right? A lot of them are mercenaries, a lot of them, like the War Wagon, can be pretty expensive, so if you let Germany sit back and collect 40 minutes of resources, yeah, they're going to be making a lot of powerful units on the field. Maybe Doppelcylinders too, they're pretty pricey and pretty good for the price, so yeah, maybe we'll see them as well. So, since we got a lot of time to work with, let's check out the decks. We'll start with China since we got the flag conveniently here. So, deck-wise, what does this China got? They got water buffalo ranching, stockyards, fulling mills. So, this is going to be a very livestock-heavy China. And keeping in mind the player doing this is Eliyah. And we know from Eliyah, from all the games he's done over these many months, he loves his livestock, you know. He loves to incorporate animals. He's very on top of constantly checking on them and eating them when they're completely full of grain or whatever those animals eat. So yeah, this is really going to help his food economy out. And as a result of that, he only really needs refrigeration as a food economic card, because the fact that he's using livestock and he's going to be gathering them at a 300% rate means that he doesn't have to keep his rice paddies on coin, right? On food. He can keep them on coin all the time. And as such, that's why you see a lot more of the coin-related cards for the rice paddies, the Royal Mint, the Textile Mill, and the Cigar Roller. Because really, when you set up an economy like this, you can have all the food taken from meat, and you can have all the coin from the rice, which means inevitably you can have more rice paddies working towards you, too. Another thing you notice with this deck, you get Banner School as well as Acupuncture. These are training cards for the Chinese, so this helps those banner armies come out really fast. Really fast. In particular, this one here also benefits the artillery units as well, so this will help with the hand mortars and the flamethrowers too. It also well, let's see. Oh, so it does nerf out the flying crow. Okay, so it only affects the Mound Castle artillery units, which is fine. Yeah, and then in terms of everything else you get in this deck, you get really all the upgrade cards. Notice this one here. Old Dynasty Reforms. This is basically the legendary card you know from Legacy. 50% increased stats for Quangs, Chuko Nu, and in DE it also affects the Step Rider and the Keshik. So yeah, this is a really good way of making your Chinese units relevant into the late game. And certainly in this treaty situation, you're going to have plenty of resources to offset the increased costs of these banner armies that the card does as a trade-off. So don't worry about the trade-off too much for this card, because you're going to have so many resources coming in by 40 minutes that's like a non-issue. The 50% stats, though, that makes a big difference. It's actually the same level as an Imperial upgrade on the unit, so yeah. Then of course you got Repelling Volley. This is the same thing as counter-infantry rifling, only it also affects the Chuko Nu as well. And then you also get Territorial Combat. And then you get standard hit points. This is important. Mongolian Scourge affects 3 of your cavalry unit stats, so that's really good. What's this one? Team Yongle Infrastructure. Team infantry and civilians move faster, +1 Mongol scout. Okay, that's pretty helpful. I mean, it's kind of important that you're checking out on your opponent what they're building, where they're placing the walls, what sort of comp they might go for. So yeah, that's pretty good. And the reason why we see Confucius Gift here, to make the cards research instantly, is so Eliyah can use this Infinite 2 Flying Crows card to constantly supply himself with really strong artillery. Yeah. Now, I'm surprised he didn't include that card that actually adds some stats to the Flying Crow and the Flamethrower and gives him some free upgrades. I always include that one in my decks, but maybe they nerfed it, so who knows. Let's go over the, which France is this? The Pink French teamed up with the Chinese. What do they have deck-wise? So deck-wise, we see really a lot, in terms of, I'm surprised we don't see Cigar Roller here. We see the Textile Mill, Rum Distillery, Royal Mint, Refridge, but no Plantation. Why is that? Well, I could see why, because he has a lot of native combat cards here. He has not only Wilderness Warfare, which benefits natives, Native Warrior Combat, as well as French Auxiliaries Combat. He also has Ancien Regime, which grants you the House of Bourbon natives. So the Royal Musketeer, the Royal Dragoon, really strong French natives. So they're going to be a big part of this combat as well. And then, what else do we got? We also get Native Warriors. So this basically allows the Native Warriors to be cheaper. Blood Brothers. All Native Warriors are upgraded to champion level. Hit points and build limits of native embassies are increased. So I did not know about that second effect. In the Legacy game, it only did the top effect, and I would have thought for a second, why is this guy getting free upgrades on natives in a treaty game? That's kind of silly. But then when I checked the bomb thing about making the native embassies have more HP, that makes total sense, because he's going to be doing lots of native warriors. He's got from the House of Vasa, the House of Wen, and the House of Bourbon, thanks to this card here. So you're talking about six or so different native warriors coming out of those buildings. So yeah, you're going to need to make sure that they're not going to be easy sniping targets for mortars or culverins. Yeah, that's a great idea. Then you get Grivabil system for the cannons, really important for treaties since you're going to be blasted down a lot of walls. Factories, good for economics. Exotic hardwoods. The fact that you're going with natives makes this pretty important too. So yeah, definitely. And let's see what the other team is doing as well in terms of deck. So in terms of deck here, the other France, oh, well, they got the same Native Warrior combat cards, but they do have Fur Trade. Now, in the treaty deck, these trade-off cards that trades one resource for a greater amount of another one, like Fur Trade, Deep Sea, Self-Sea Bubble, those cards gain a lot of value. And in fact, what you'll see in treaty is, and I've done this with people before, is you'll gather one resource primarily for those 40 minutes, then you research the Fur Trade or Self-Sea Bubble or whichever trade-off resource card you get, and then you get like 20 gajillion resources out of it, right? So if you throw into the stack like 200,000 food gathered over 40 minutes, not that you would get that much food, but let's say hypothetically, and it gave you coin in return, the coin you would get in return would probably be something like, I don't know, like 400,000, something crazy, right? So that's the point of this card. It's so you can accumulate a lot of extra resources, which you can use yourself, or you can lend it to an ally as well and tribute it to them if they need it. Because even after 40 minutes of eco, sometimes you do run out of resources depending on how the combat's going. So now you'll be able to supply some of that coin here to your opponent, right? And as a result of that, I feel like this France that we're looking at right now is probably going to be gathering a lot of food in the preparation that they'll be trading that off for coin just around the time that the 40-minute mark is around. We'll confirm that. We'll see if they do that, but that's what I think is going to happen, and I've done it myself before. You wait till about probably like 35 minutes in. What is it, like, yeah, 35 minutes in. See how much food you've gone from having like 8 mills going. You've obviously grabbed all the hunts too. Make sure you do that. Yeah, and then you get like a bajillion dollars in coin, and then you start sending it to your ally, you start using it to make artillery for yourself. It's really a great strategy. In terms of the rest of the cards, though, pretty similar to the France we just saw. Now, this is interesting. We got infinite cuirassiers, so they're going to be using the home city constantly, it looks like. Now, looking back at the other France, if we want to look back at them, I do not see an infinite shipment for them, so they didn't want to get any infinite shipments here. Which, you know, it's alright. I mean, there is a bit of a drawback to shipments if you don't have any way to speed it up, because, well, that queue takes a while, and that might, you know, cut the size of your army a bit, waiting for those units to come out, so I understand that fully. So, but yeah, it could certainly be helpful to have an infinite shipment like cuirassiers in there, in case you're running low on resources and you need to queue something up over the long run. Yeah, that could be helpful. But yeah, in general, they're going heavy on the native warriors as well. Though it might be a little concerning, considering they don't have the exotic hardwoods. Which means, yeah, their ability to get the wood costs of the natives might be a bit trickier. I'm sure they can compensate for that with the factories that they have to. Let's check out the Germany now, the last one that we haven't checked the deck for yet. So the Germany has really all of the economic cards available to them, including the Guild Artisans in Age 4 for the settler wagons. Of course, you're going to need Germantown farmers to get those settler wagons, which is why they include those. But let's check everything else out, like the combat. So, combat-wise, we see emphasis on cavalry, cavalry combat, cavalry hit points, the Pisanier cavalry. Also, we see emphasis on the skirmishers a bit here with the long-range infantry hit points. Advanced arsenal will benefit them as well, but the other component we see is native warriors. Because in fact, Germany gets a very special card in Age 1 called the Prince Electors, and you really get a choice between five different Germanic houses, native settlements. You can go with Hanover, Habsburg, Oldenburg, Wen, or Wittelbach. So you get a lot of options, you know. And if I recall correctly, those native warriors do cost population, unfortunately, but the great thing is, you can add an additional variety of units to your roster depending on what you need, right? Because obviously, Oldenburg, good with the anti-skirms. Habsburg, they get the mounted infantry. So yeah, you really have to pick and choose, basically, which native settlement's going to be really good for you. Right? So you can take full advantage of it. And then to supplement that, they also include a Native Warriors card. Makes the natives cheaper. So yeah, the combination of these two, this is going to be really good and pretty helpful. Yeah. And if you have any gunpowder natives, Advanced Arsenal helps out with that. And one more thing we do see here is 17 Habsburg allies. So this delivers Austrian line infantry, basically the tactical musketeers that have different stats depending on what mode they're working in. So yeah, this is going to be really helpful too and tie into both this and this. Yeah, so a lot of natives today. I think it's pretty clear here that 3 of the 4 players are going to go heavy with native warriors. We can even see the royal embassies starting to pop out right now. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, let's check out the Yellow France actually. What's the Yellow France doing? Because I noticed he was going with the fur trade. Is he getting a lot of food right now? Well, he looks like he's getting some elk over here. He's getting some elk over here too, but he's also doing a lot of mining. Yeah, probably has to do a bit of mining now for technologies as well as aging up. So yeah, that makes total sense why they have to do a bit of mining right now, but I think once they get majority of their technologies, namely the food ones at the mill done, including the Age 5 one for the, what is it, sustainable agriculture or something? Yeah, once they do that, I think we're going to see a move over to all mills, so they can max out on the fur trade. Maybe doing a bit of wood on side with the, well yeah, you can see it right now, they got the factories working on the wood right now. probably to get those initial costs for the mills taken care of. And then that way, once they're ready to start fighting in 40 minutes, they're going to have something other than coin to work with, right? They could get some artillery down and then slowly move towards, you know, working towards the cavalry at that point and infantry units with the mills that they already have established alongside their coin. So yeah, that's the beauty of fur trade, is you already got all those mills built and all the vills working on them anyways. So even though your food might look a little scarce at the start, it makes up for it real quickly because you're going all food on that economy and you get that gigantic stockpile of coin, which could last you a really long time. A very long time, actually. Yeah. I notice here, too, that the Germany is also going heavy on the food with the mills, with their settler wagons. Probably because the mills are probably a bit cheaper than the estates, which are about 600 wood, so it's a bit easier to get started on the food first. See a German factory wagon coming down right now. And let's see what China's up to. Yeah, it looks like China is already going to work with the livestock. We see the water buffaloes from the water buffalo card. We see goats. There's going to be a lot of goat meat and a lot of water buffalo meat used by China. And these animals are going to provide a really good food economy that lasts deep into the game. And I'm also going to be curious to see, like, what's going to be the final or final-ish consulate option that they stick with. Right now, China is going with the Russian allies. This is great at the start of the treaty because it does improve the settler build time, so it ends up allowing villagers to come out a bit quicker. Another reason to start with Russia would be to get their access to their blockhouse wagon, their fort wagon, as well as their factory wagon. Because the factory is going to provide you additional resources, and it's also going to keep you in line with the 3 other European civs that are currently on the field right now, who have their own factories. And for whatever reason, if you want to make heavy cannons, you can do that, right? You can combine that with your Confucian Academy, which makes the Flying Crows, so you'll have 2 heavy artillery units to use, basically. Interesting that they are still in Age 4 along with their ally. Looks like the other team has already gone to Imperial. Weird. Yeah, weird. Very weird. Summer Palace. They got the Summer Palace. They got the Porcelain Tower. They also got the Temple of Heaven, which aids in healing your units, too. So yeah, what's the Pink France doing? So the Pink France doing a variety of things. They're doing a bit of estate work, a bit of mill work. They do not have fur trade, so they're going with more of a balanced sort of economic approach. And I think in the long term, maybe that's better, because remember, I guess there might be a ceiling at some point when all that coin you get from the fur trade is going to expire, and then you're going to have to, you know, switch over to estates. At least when you go with this method here of having some estates, some mills, at least you don't have to change things up as much, I can imagine, right? Because you're balancing the economy out more, but of course you're risking the fact that you might lose resources because it's balanced and you might need one resource over the other as the match progresses. So there's more uncertainty earlier on, but there's also way more uncertainty going on if you go with fur trade way down the line, like an hour in, 2 hours in. Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing too, nobody ever thinks, you know, this game is going to go for 2, 3, 4 hours in AoE 3, but let me tell you, I have been in those things for many years, so it does happen more than you think. You need to think about 2 hours into the game, 3 hours into the game, 4 hours into the game. You need to be ready for that. And I do like this strategy here by Bo Claessens here. He's taking his houses and he's walling them around the factories. This is a really neat little strategy here because this is going to make it a lot harder for an opponent to come in with, say, petards and just wreck these factories. Or hand units or whatever they're making. They're going to have to get through these houses first. And he's also putting the capital back here as well. He's just plugging this area full of wood buildings so that anybody looking to take and snipe the factories is going to have to get through all these houses first. One neat thing about using houses is opponents will have to target each individual house to take it down, right? Whereas with the wall, you can basically have units all over the place targeting on that one wall segment, which is usually a lot more lengthened than the house, so yeah. Units would have to congregate a lot closer to hit this factory and have to spend probably a little bit more time targeting these houses to reach the factory. So that's pretty good. Pretty useful. Yeah, with Germany, remember, you get free yuans with your shipments, so they got all their free yuans hanging out over here on the frontier, probably until they start building in that direction. Yep, definitely. And I find it interesting, everybody's already got their royal embassies constructed as well. So yeah, everybody's already gotten started on that. So it looks like everybody's taken a native settlement, at least looks like it. I would have thought that the French, at least this France, would have taken both of the native settlements. But there is a thing in treaty that you should recall, is the fact that in a team treaty game, it is a known strategy to research all of the native technologies and then delete the trading post and then give it to your ally of who you want to make the warriors. So even though China might want to get the technologies from the House of Wedin and the House of Vasa, once they finish researching those technologies, yep, see, he just deleted his trading post here, and he's going to give it to France, because he knows France is the one that has all the native warrior combat cards, the cheapening of natives. He's the one that needs the natives the most. So after getting the technologies from the native settlement, he's going to give it to France so they can get more statistically stronger natives on the field. Which they're going to be really good, because remember, the House of Wen gets strong halberds. Then they get their own cuirassiers, so think of that. Cuirassiers, very strong, heavy cavalry unit with splash that only France usually gets, but no, with the House of Wen, you can get a native version of them that, yeah, it doesn't cost population. Insane, right? Yeah, it is. It really is. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting to see. So now we see the walls setting up around the periphery here. This sort of like a fortress area around this corner here. Yep. And they're probably going to, yeah. Alright. Definitely. Just checking these walls to make sure that they're all established. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, yep, lots and lots of mills. I do like that they have one estate here as a backup, so if they do need it, that's already there for them to do once their fur trade coin is, you know, expired at that point. So yeah, definitely. Definitely. And now, looking at the field, we do have to pay attention to where they're going to be constructing their stuff in. Because see this little yellow ring going around the base here? This is basically the limit of how far out you can build before the treaty ticker is done. So yeah, nobody's going to be building beyond this point, really, until, you know, we reach the 40-minute mark, which is going to be in about 13.5 minutes, it looks like. Yeah, once we reach that, then they can start building out beyond there. What isn't helpful, though, is for this player here in particular, this is where sort of the lake comes out to a bit of a stream with the ice, so you can't build on the ice, so you have to stick your buildings on this side of the water here, right here, which does deny you a bit of like forward building space, whereas this China player here can clearly build out to the fullest extent of their ring, because they don't have that ice near them, so they can fully push out in this direction, giving them a bit more of an advantage. Yeah, a bit more of an advantage. I always feel like in any game on this map, the player who gets this position here always has a bit of a disadvantage because they have to deal with all this ice around them, and it sort of makes their architectural pursuits a bit strained and a bit annoying. Now this is kind of cool. Look at this nice little wall here along the railroad to protect the mills and protect the base here. Very clever, right? And funny enough too, them and the Chinese are the only ones that have to worry about making walls like that, because the both of the French frogs here do not have a trade route that they have to deal with in their base, so they don't have to worry about getting raided on the side by that, because sometimes trade routes, yeah, they give us nice trading posts, but sometimes they can be used by the enemy to attack us, because you can't obviously build walls on the trade route, right? Because obviously if you stuck a big giant stone wall in front of a train, it's either going to be busted by the train or the train's going to get destroyed by the wall. So yeah, you can't put walls on railroads. Don't try it. Don't try it. It's not going to go well for you. So yeah, we see, yep, this Germany's building out to the extent that they can along the Golden Ring, and they're going to be attacking from this area. Now, one advantage that Germany is going to have with these Uhlans is they're going to be able to start attacking right around here, and it might make it easier for Germany to claim this area for combat a lot sooner and go right at the wall of the opponent here. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, one thing you can obviously do with China as well is you can train the disciples. The disciples, you know, a nice coyote runner equivalent light infantry unit you can have alongside your normal army, because they don't cost any population. So disciples are a pretty good unit to add to your normal mass. And in fact, I'm curious now, did they get the White Pagoda as their imperial? Yes, they did get the White Pagoda. The White Pagoda age up does give you an increased build limit of the disciples. So yeah, that's going to be one thing China's going to be making a lot of, I could assume. With IP Man here, their monk. I used to. Alright, and where are they going in terms of like shipping wise? So, yeah, most of the economic shipments are done for them. They do have the Team Senegalese Rifleman done. That's basically a team card for France that improves the effect of all ranged infantry, so it does affect both teammates. So yeah, China's Chocanoes become even more deadly with that card sent, as well as their Giant Grenadiers. It looks like they got from the monastery too. Giant Grenadiers are really solid mercenary you can use really with any civ. They get splash damage, which is really good, but they also have a bayonet and cavalry a bit as well with this multiplier here. So yeah, I like the Giant Grenadier. It's probably one of the most versatile mercenaries in the game, because you can use it for sieging against infantry, use it against... Sometimes you can use it against like cannons in a big mass, right? You can use it to target something, and then it's great against cavalry too. So yeah, you can use it against many things. I think everybody at this point is in their preparatory steps for the fight that's about to commence. And boy, is it going to be a good fight from what I hear. Yeah. Now that I'm looking at the top ticker thing, it doesn't... I can't tell. Is it going to go to like an hour and 40 minutes? Or what's going on? It looks like the clock is sort of... yeah. A bit strange. I don't think the fighting is going to be quite as long as they said it is, but that's alright. I definitely think this is a great situation here where I can talk to you about different strategies for treaty, different builds, different methods, and I think we went over a lot of them so far, right? How fur trade works and like trade-off resource cards works, how card choices matter, how the way you construct your base matters. All that stuff is really good. So even if the fight is only like 20 minutes or something in a treaty, those 40 minutes of prep time are probably the most golden, essential part of the whole operation, basically. The fighting is only the second part of it, and that's, you know, what you have to really do in any Age of Empires game, is be able to fight. But in treaty, you have to gain a whole new skill set of city building, card priorities. That's what matters, right? Different methodology. Also, wall building. You know, you don't need to know how to construct good layered walls in a treaty game. This is a skill I don't know how to do myself, and, you know, every time when I play treaty with somebody, you know, like Dicka, Cigar, or somebody, they always say to me, you know, every time I look at you constructing walls, I want to gouge my eyes out, because I can't look at those walls you're doing, man. They're just crooked, they're not shaped, they're not parallel. I don't construct good walls, and you know, he's like, you know what, let me come over there. I'll build the walls for you. I don't want to look at what you're gonna do with it, and we're probably gonna have some serious problems if they come straight at us. So let me layer the walls for you a bit there, because you clearly don't know how to do it quickly and efficiently. So yeah, yep, you definitely need to know how to layer walls for tree, though. It's really important, because if you don't have enough wall layers, it doesn't take them a lot of work to flank you either. But if you have, like, say 10, 20 walls in front of them, yeah, flanking is not a optimal solution, because all you have to do is pick a couple of culverins and mortars, like maybe a handful of them, stick them on that big layered wall area, and then you blast apart their artillery, their infantry, and then that's a wasted front, right? You take a little bit away from the primary front, but in terms of like success and driving in, not so much. But if you only have a couple of walls, yeah, that's a big deal, because you can take those walls down, throw some hussars into that base, cut down the mills, cut down the plantations, the estates, the rice paddies, all that gets destroyed. So, yeah, keep that in mind. Yep. Clearly, China has a lot of step riders and chukanus because they left their summer palace probably on the standard army for the duration of the match, which is probably going to be a good start for them, since, you know, Step Riders, pretty decent hand cav unit, great against skirmishers. Chokanu, good against the heavy infantry and the light cavalry. But what are they going to do when they're getting hit with, say, Yulons or Hussars or something? Are they going to have any sort of, like, starting pike unit to use? Or maybe they're just going to do kung fu fighting with their disciples. That might be it, and then maybe the Giant Grenadiers have to use their bandits after all. We'll see, though. We'll see how that goes. Interesting place to put the fort down. That's pretty neat. And then with one of these natives here, you get access to the battery towers. Basically a bombard tower from AoE 2. Big nasty building you don't want to have to deal with. Some stuff here. What stuff? What stuff are you talking about? Right. So, barricade. Yeah, good idea, barricade. Barricade everything you possibly can. That's probably the route you want to go down in this treaty. Now, this is pretty neat, because you got the native settlement right here. You don't actually have to wall this off at all, because units can't just walk through this area. So yeah, that's pretty good way to save on a bit of wood and supremacy, I guess. Yeah. Saxon Royal Grenadiers. Kriegstein. That helps with the forts, I believe. What else do we got here? Yep, here's all the Imperial upgrades and Guard upgrades coming out now for Yellow France. Yep, we're gonna see the same thing from the Germans. Oh, so they went with the House of Hanover, I see. So we're gonna be looking at Totenkopf Hussars. Got the Royal Drummers, and I believe something else. I think it's the Black Brunswicker, right? So they get the Brunswicker, the Totenkopf Hussar, and then the Drummers, which is basically a morale-boosting unit. It doesn't do any combat, but it allows units to attack faster and move faster. So yeah, having these Royal Drummers to aid in your army is definitely going to be a good help on the front lines. Unit-wise, they got war wagons, Ulans, anything else? Anything else we have to see? Nothing yet. Where are the natives? Where are those Totenkopfs and those Black Brunswickers right now? Because you're going to need a lot of those to gauge the initial assault.
Ready.
Oh yeah, they cost population because of the way the card works. So yeah, notice here how the drummers cost like 2 pop. Yeah.
Yes.
That could be a bit of a concern, I guess. So, wait a second. Is Germany going to hold on to that native site, or are they just... I don't know. We're in the last 3 minutes before any sort of combat takes place, and we're going to see how this runs. Imperial Winged Hussars, Horse Guns, Saxon Cuirassiers, Trabants, Royal Arquebusier, lots of artillery. So they're going to be building like a wall of cannons, it looks like, and using the native warriors to sort of protect them and be the front lines, I guess. And that actually works pretty good for France because of the Jura Gabriel combat card system. Their horse artillery do gain additional damage beyond the standard. So if you want to like mass a bunch of horse artillery as France and throw the native warriors in front with all those extra stats from the cards, yeah, that's actually a pretty good way to go about it. I wonder if the yellow France is going to do something similar to that. They are actually going for something a bit different. I see... Oh, so they got the Royal Decree Grenadiers. The old guard, so that's pretty interesting. And then they got some culverins and horse artillery as well. They also got a... Yep, these are the Royal Dragoons. These cost population, though, since that's the way that card works. The blue China, though, is in here with Disciples, Chukonu, and Step Riders. So it does look like this Germany is doing it for the technologies. I'm wondering if they're going to hold... Oh, so they're training the native wars as well. Are they going to hold on to the settlement, or are they going to give it right to the French to help them on their front? We'll see. This could be kind of interesting because the way this is looked... Oh, they just killed their Yuans. Why'd you do that, man? Oh, more artillery. Yeah, that makes sense. So they can get a mortar, some horse arty, and some coves. I got heavy cavalry, cannon, grenadier, skirm. So that's basically going to be their comp, it looks like. Now, we're going to be fighting in about 1 minute, it looks like. The combat's going to begin. So we're going to see how this turns out for the players. I'm going to see how where the attacks initially happen, if they were able to defend very well. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. We'll see how this turns out. Yeah, I like how... No, that's for France. I'm just seeing like where the armies could position themselves at the start. Yep. Should I do a countdown for this? You think that'd be fun? Maybe I will. Maybe I'll do a bit of a countdown. We'll start in 10 seconds. We'll start a bit of a countdown to initiate the warfare. Yeah, maybe that'll be fun. Alright, so we're almost there right now. I'll initiate the countdown when it's time. Alright. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll attack! Yeah. already the combat started, and we got this battery wagon not knowing where to go right now, trying not to get... Oh, it did get hit. These Polish winged hussars from the French, though, completely obliterating the artillery. The war wagons are remaining here, new ones coming out quickly to resupply. This is going to be a pretty interesting one. Can this Germany overcome this wall of beefed up natives and the big giant phalanx of horse artillery and the black blasting them with anti-infantry shots? This is going to be a pretty dicey moment for Germany. We'll see if they can survive this. On the other side, though, we see France taking up a defensive position with their artillery, moving forward with their native warriors, and as well, we see the construction of a fort here. We see a big number of the battery towers here as well, outposts. So France is pretty well fortified here. The one thing they don't have because of the geography is the walling. China moving in with arquebusiers, Chukonu, so they're going to be adding some territorial armies in too. I see Chengdao swordsmen as well as arquebusier. This mass of skirmishers here trying to avoid getting attacked by cuirassiers directly though. Oh, flamethrowers. Yep, we're going to get flamethrowers here, as well as iron flails, meteor hammers, the more stronger units of the Chinese roster. More iron flails. So what are they going for? Are they going for... Oh, so they're going for the army of arquebusiers and iron flails. They're not going for any Chengdaos, it looks like. Yeah, I don't see any more Chengdaos, so it looks like they're going for mostly an anti-infantry comp right now. Because the iron flail's anti-skirmisher, the arquebusier, and anti-heavy infantry and light cavalry. Flamethrowers taking up the front lines in this, but unfortunately for you, cannons are great for sniping flamethrowers, so you need to be careful of that, right? You're going to have to mass up a lot of these flamethrowers to really take advantage of that. Here comes the step riders. We see a couple of the couple of the Chengdaos. What banner army are they going with at the Summer Palace, by the way? Let's check that out. That might be helpful information for us. So they're going with the one that has the Arquebusiers and the Iron Flails. So yeah, it looks like the general Step Riders are going to take the front lines whenever possible, and the other Iron Flail cab they get, while keeping the Master Chico and Arquebusiers in the back. And I also see the queuing of flamethrowers and hand mortars, so they're going to be making heavy use of that. As for this side, you see Germany holding its ground right now. They're starting to move in their Needle Gunner, Royal Guard Skirms, Doppelsolners, War Wagons, Horse Artillery, Ulans, so lots and lots of cavalry based on the way they built their deck. Are we going to see a lot of, oh, here's the Giant Grenadiers. Are we going to see any Black Brunswickers or Totenkopf Hussars taking the fight over here? We'll see, though. We'll see if those come into play, though. What we got here? Royal Tax, so official technology. Oh, so they are holding on to the House of Wedden, because I do see Trabants coming on, as well as probably eventually some Saxon Cuirassiers. Yep, there's one right there. So, looks like in this case, the France and Germany are sharing the natives. But, you know, that makes sense, because both players are playing heavily into natives, whereas on the enemy team, only the France is really going heavy on the native usage. So, how is this going for them right now? I see they're trying to protect with the Winged Hussars from the House of Vasa, Trabants, Horse Artillery trying to take a defensive line. Oh, so France is starting to throw in halberdiers as well. Here comes the Imperial Halberdiers to deal with the cavalry mix. So I imagine they're going to make heavy use of the natives as well as halberdiers to take the front lines and try to use horse artillery in the back to take a defensive posture. Now, this is going to be a painful situation if you're dealing with China. They can literally swarm the map with all of these hand mortars. Yeah. Not only that, they can also access culverins through the Russian consulate too, remember, so yeah, watch out for these culverins. These things are, yep, they're already starting to attack the French artillery line and behind the walls. Culverins getting blasted down, as well as horse arty. They're also getting flanked a bit by Iron Flails and Arquebusiers too. Look at this carefully constructed area of war academies by the Chinese. They are going to use these war academies to drive right in beyond this walling position and attack from the flank here. Right where the mortars are too, so these mortars are not in a safe position right now. They can constantly be pressured from this side. In China, to cement their area over here, we're actually going to move their rice paddies over to this section as well. So the villagers will be right there should they want to move forward and start constructing in this direction. So it looks like China trying to do a bit of a claw approach, you know, pinch you here, two directions, whereas for the other side, the Germans versus the Pink French, it's mostly a fight in one general mass over here, with one trying to gain the numbers and stats advantage over the other. We'll see, depending on how it goes, if France can move towards this outpost or Germany can blast towards this wall. That's going to tell us how this fight goes for their side, right? Because I think in general it's pretty well known if one of these guys falls in their 1v1 on the map, the other one's probably going to collapse soon afterwards. I don't see either France or China or Germany doing some mega fight 400 population demigod level stuff today, even with natives, you know, even with the natives. Now France would have a bit of an easier time with that, but yeah, it does get dicey once you get out-popped by two players. Regardless of the skill levels, yeah, you're going to want to try to avoid that as much as possible. Yeah, now this is kind of concerning. Even with your hand armor, massing the halberdiers as France is making a big push into it. This is going to be a serious issue, because as I always mention in a lot of the games when I see halberdiers, halberds one of the most versatile units in AoE 3. They can kill cavalry, they can kill artillery, they can kill infantry like skirms. All they have to do is get within distance of it. And when you're massing up all this artillery, all these native warriors coming at you, it gives the halberds ample coverage to reach their targets. And that's when you see the halberdier do their work of being a multi-class unit, right? And just look at the stats. 50 hand attack, that's comparable to cavalry. So they end up dishing out the same damage output as cavalry in a lot of cases against things like cannons and skirms, should they be allowed to close that distance gap with them. And looks like now, because you got all these winged hussars mixed in with them, they were able to close that distance pretty easily and apply their high siege as well. 64 siege, pretty good. So Germany, this is a really concerning situation, and it looks like they are trying to plug up their buildings with the war wagons a bit so they can run into these alleyways here. Forced to also get Doppelsolners too, which I didn't think they were expecting to have to make here. You know, they didn't have any of the Doppelsolner combat cards, not the Soligan Steel either, so these Doppels, not going to be the strongest units right now. You know, they're not going to be, they're actually not even Guard or Imperial upgrades from what I can see, they're only veteran upgraded Doppels, so statistically not in a good position. Horse artillery taking the defensive line over here, they're going to try to blast off as much of this house as possible, try to regain footing in this area. Couple of needle gunners as well. That's going to be a little bit better for dealing with the halberdiers, but once the halbs do get into combat with these skirms, it only takes a number of strikes to take them out. You know, halberdiers in the melee with skirms, not good for the skirms at all. Heavy cannons. So is this Germany moving on to heavy cannons? Yeah, looks like no. Oh, so they're shipping the heavy cannons. Yeah. That's why it's good. This is a great card for Germany. Infinite 1 heavy cannon plus 4 U-1s. It's a card I've seen the AI for Germany use against me for many years. It really is a powerful card because you can keep your factories on the resources and still get the benefits of using heavy cannons in the combat. It actually arrives quicker than it does from the factory, believe it or not. So as long as you can keep the shipments going, probably a better way to get heavy cannons onto the field. And it looks like that heavy cannon is going to have to stay behind the walls now, since it looks like Germany is losing control of this area. Let's see how it's going on the other side. So it looks like in general this yellow France here has been able to hold the line, it looks like. Coming up on the sides here constantly with the mortars to drive back the Chinese war academies, which they're going to do again, as well as doing most of their combat in this general area here, with lots of House of Bourbon natives. It does look like Voltiguyers are also going to be added in as well, to basically be a good unit to throw behind the walls, basically. But I guess the big challenge you're going to have is, how do you keep the skirmishers safe from the flamethrowers? These flamethrowers, they rip right through infantry of all shapes and sizes. Oh, they can even burn through cavalry too if you mass up the flamethrowers, you know. Just did arena the other day. Flamethrowers. Some people say, oh, flamethrowers, they're not that good. They don't have good stats. Well, the thing is, in a controlled situation, flamethrowers, they can burn through anything. That's the one thing they can do that a normal artillery can't. And why is that? Because they have a great rate of fire, you know. It's a unit that shoots fire and has a great rate of fire. Get it? Fire? Yeah, it's great against all unit types, because remember, the thing that makes cavalry somewhat immune to artillery most of the time is that artillery has a malice against cavalry more often than not. But when you get a great rate of fire, because it's a fire flamethrower that does fire, it's going to hit that HP constantly, like ping, 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 ping. And it's going to end up doing a lot more damage than something that shoots maybe every 2 or 3 seconds, because as you see the math, it does like 2 hits every, well, it's about 0.50, so that's a really good rate of fire. You're like going constantly ping, 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 ping in your attack. That's really, really significant. You know, it's like under a second in terms of attack speed. It's really great. Back over here, it looks like Germany is right up against the wall right now. You know, with the war wagons right on underneath the gates right now, just trying to blast through these pink French natives right now. heavy cannon trying to meander through the mills right here so they can make the proper shots needed to get these infantry up. It must be pretty painful to deal with all these Voltagliers. Also, you've got Royal Arquebusiers coming in. You're going to get more Trabants coming in. Oh yeah, this is kind of a nasty situation. Thankfully, though, War Wagon's high damage unit, 92 damage. Ouch, that's pretty strong. And it's certainly a great meat shield to throw your cannons behind, because even though these polearms here are good against cav, it does take them a little bit more time to do it because of that hand armor. We'll see, though, if France turns back to halberdiers, though, to spice things up. Looks like right now, though, they're just trying to, blast through those walls with the force artillery, try to create a bit of a ruckus using the Royal Dragoons from the House of Bourbon. And probably, here comes more winged hussars and more halberdiers, too. So yeah, halberdiers are going to be used to basically wipe out these Yuans in like 1 or 2 hits. Very easy target. And then they can start making moves on the War Wagon and try to push those back a little bit. Oh yeah, definitely. How's it going over here with China? China is struggling a bit now. At least it seems like they're struggling a bit to make any progress, because it looks like those culverins, there's a line of culverins there for the French. They're making it really hard to make the flamethrowers anymore. So now China has to change up their game and use their artillery more from the backside. Lots of hand mortars, lots of culverins from the Russian consulate allies, also flying crows. Remember how I mentioned at the start that how much that flying crows shipping was going to make a difference here? Let's look right now at China, see how many, they get like 4 shipments available, so whenever they need some heavy artillery and flying crows, just boop, 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 instantly on the field, not even a challenge. So it's great for China that they always have a really strong artillery option always available to them. Now I should mention though, the Flying Crow, it works sort of like a rocket, the British Congreve rockets. So while it doesn't have any particular multipliers against the infantry, it does have a really good splash, and it can really be used against large masses of units. Right, you throw it right into the center of a big mass, these rockets will actually tear through their entire formation. Even the cavalry can be made susceptible, because even with the malice against cav, that's still a solid, 200 or something damage against the cav units, which don't have crush armor. So even a unit like this is going to be, missing like a third or so of their health when they get hit with just one of these rockets. So if you could get like 6 or so flying crows working for you, even the cavalry are going to be threatened by it. And that's what you see a lot in arena games, is you see these rockets being great against things like Yuans and SARs, depending on if they can be properly defended behind, a cliff or something. They can really change the way they combat goes. And that's another thing too. China, regardless of all this combat, still has the dexterity of the hotkeys to be able to continually produce water buffaloes from the villages, so they can continually fan those up and add that to their food stuff. Food-wise, their food is doing really well right now, because even though they're sending the really expensive banner armies with the iron flails and the meteor banners, they're able to really keep up with their food eco because of all this livestock that they can gather at 300+% now, coming from these villages. Coin-wise, they're doing okay too, because they can stick more of their villagers onto the rice paddies to deal with the coin. So in a way, this special type of economy is really good for them. Now I'm curious for the Yellow France. Did they ever send the... they did send the fur trade, and this is probably why they've been able to hold the line so well. But unfortunately now, they have already burned through their fur trade, and now their coin is looking kind of meager right now. It's looking so meager, in fact, that now they have to fall back on using Imperial Musketeers. Kind of an ordinary unit, honestly. They're not a big hitting unit like Halbs or Sterns or Cuirassiers, so you have to fall back on Musketeers. That means that your money is running really dry really quick. Now, to be fair, they are getting the job done right now, but eventually you're going to need some, like, skirmishers, some halberdiers to really plow into their walls. But yeah, they're already struggling here. They're not able to even make it past it because of this wall of flying crows and handlers, as well as this formation of arquebusiers driving right at them. So I think this Yellow France here is going to have some real problems. I think the only shot they really got is maybe trading off some of this food, making a bit more coin, getting some cannons down. It's easier said than done, though, because you got meteor hammers, which, remember, they can fling those big giant metal balls at you, your cannons, from a long distance, acting as like a short-range culverin. So even cannons, that's a questionable option at this point, because now this Chinese army is basically engulfing you, surrounding you on all sides. Now, it does look like on the German front is gaining some land here. They did actually push the French out of their wall area here, and it looks like the villages are continuing to be safe with their agricultural work, which is great. And let's take a look at the resource count about Germany. So Germany, economically, perfectly sound right now. Doing excellent. They got all the food they could possibly ask for right now. Their coin, they got satisfactory coin. Their wood is looking alright. Germany does not have to worry about resources. Germany can continue to fight this out. They can continue to try to push forward here. Now, if they can push forward, that's what we're going to see. Because if their ally, the Yellow French, loses their resources and drops out, then they're in trouble. And unfortunately, if Germany can't push out, they can only stonewall here and keep the Pink French from coming in. They might not never be able to win if Germany can't, do it on their own. And if it's indeed comes down to the French to do that. So we'll see really on this front here how things go, because I feel like if somebody's going to collapse, somebody's going to get sieged on, it's probably going to be on this front for right now. And we're going to see if these French royal natives from the House of Bourbon, combined with a lot of the units, can actually hold the defensive mark here for themselves. And now we're starting to see a little bit of a rollout. Let's go back to that France. I wonder what that France. So that France, knowing that they probably were going to lose a lot of resources during this match, is now able to actually rely on that infinite cuirassier shipment that they flew in their deck intelligently. So now, regardless if they run out of resources, right, in particular the coin, they're going to be able to supply in some heavy cavalry with some splash. Yep, see right here comes the splash cavalry. That will help a little bit with the pushback. It will also help you basically hold this position for longer than you normally could, because adding some cuirassiers into the mix is almost guaranteed to give you success on the battle, because cuirassiers can deal with really all units. I mean, they do have the vulnerability to halberds, obviously, the hand units, the dragoons, but in numbers, cuirassiers, they can handle those things too. Even if it isn't cost efficient, they can at least give you some breathing room. But it does look like those shipments are taking a little bit of time to arrive, though. We still on sort of 0 over here. Quite not on the 1 yet. Yeah, it is taking a while to get there. So I mean, he's getting a GG. Yeah. He's bleeding dry on resources. No food, no gold. He's going to die. Yes, he is. He is dead. What are you talking about? He's a dead man walking right now. You can't live on 500, 300 food. 1k coin. That doesn't work. You can't afford artillery and stuff with that. Especially when you got a China over here going with flying crows and 3 shipments in the back, ready to send even 6 more of these things out the back door. When you thought you were done with these flying crows, 6 more flying crows are going to be flying towards you from the town center, thanks to these 3 shipments, which is quickly going to turn into 4 shipments. Yeah, so this whole methodology of using the flying crows and the Confucius gift, this is a perfect plan for China. It really worked out, because when you fill up your pot with these flying crows and you can get success with that, That's more time that your resources are not being spent because you're spending those, you're filling your army with basically free units with the shipments, right? Free, you're not spending resources for them, so it's like a freebie, you know? Like a freebie. You're also getting freebies from the consulate. You're also getting freebies from the Summer Palace, giving you some bear armies. So China, in many ways, if they can combat really well with their units, can actually save large periods of time when they don't have to spend like food, wood, coin on anything, because they can survive basically on flying crows, they can survive on free banner armies, consulate armies, yeah, all that. And that's why I like using them in Wars of Liberty too, you know, especially since they got such good consulate unit options, right? You just use the consulate with the export, you use the free armies, the cards. You basically can save a lot of resources on that to give yourself a decent eco that you can put towards hand mortars, flamethrowers. It really does work out really good for you too. Oh, no. Yep, see, this is the problem with the flying crows as well. They're great anti-artillery once they get into range. That splash and crush damage crushes all artillery, including culverins. You know, if you let the flying crows get on top of your culverins and they're idling and they're targeting other stuff, the flying crows will defeat the culverins. Yep, see that? They just exploded them. They just explode them all, unless that was the hand mortars. Same idea, you know, hand mortars too. That's another. Oh yeah, Germany's the one that resigned. Germany's the one that backed out. Really, Germany's the one that backed out. GG, you better. Oh yeah, you can tell. I do like that Germany was able to hold the line though, and they still had a lot of resources to work with though. We deathmatch players. Yeah, this is your element when you're a deathmatch player. This is what deathmatch players love. When you're in a mode when you get to start out with like 40, 50k resources, because that's what treaty essentially is. It's like deathmatch, but you have to do 40 minutes of work to get yourself to that deathmatch level of resources. Pro style. Oh yeah, I can definitely agree with that. So this match was not like an hour and 40 minutes, which I thought it was going to be, but this was a really great match. This was a really nice 2 versus 2. I really liked this one. This was a great one. And let's check out the post-game resources to see if there's any discrepancies, you know, in the game. So in general, China really low on resources. It was actually the Yellow France that was really, and you know why that is? Because they used the fur trade to really ramp up their coin economy, their coin stockpile beyond what's natural and organic, right? They had probably 10k food stockpile, and they jumped it up to that's a lot of coin. Nowhere in comparison to that by the other players. As for food though, food-wise, Germany actually had more food than the livestock of China, which I thought was interesting because China was massing out goats and water buffaloes, which should have probably had more food. But Germany, with the faster gathering settler wagons on the mills, was able to outdo that. And that's why they really, to the very end, still had 25k food left over. But let's check the military now and see where this factors in. So, in terms of the military, we see units killed. So, China, China was the most lethal one with their flamethrower and their flying crow use, I can assume. They were doing some pretty big conga lines of artillery. So, yeah, that makes sense. And second one would be Yellow France, so that in general was a pretty big battlefield. As for the other side, though, it does look like the Germans did have a better kill rate than the Pink French. But I do feel like the reason why Germany wasn't able to plow through on that side at all, and it was the Pink French that got 65 raisings versus their measly 7, was because, you know, they were able to manage their native warrior and artillery mass a lot better, so that they could use the native warriors to take the front lines, soak the damage, throw some helms in, and then let the mortars and the horse artillery do their work at blasting apart the structures. That's where I feel like this all went down. So, what do you think? Do you like treaty, 40-minute treaty? This is our first one I think I've ever done. with 2v2 one. This was really, really different. I had to think of things from a very different angle than I'm used to. And if you really enjoyed this one, let me know. Hopefully, Eliyah or whoever else can provide me more recordings, can get us some more treaties. This was definitely a very different experience than the Supremacy and the Deathmatch we're used to. So I'm looking forward to doing more of these. See you in the next casting game we do, whether it's a Deathmatch, a Supremacy, or a Treaty. Signing off now from this one. GG players, really good work here.